My apologies again, people. We had to start another video. So, picking up where we left off, we're waiting to see what type of evidence this officer has gathered. Had to put the camera down so that one of the neighbors could go in their house. Want to give them some privacy.
Do you have a cigarette or something?
Shorty ran off with the back. Does somebody have a C charger or a C cord and a portable battery? I got one in my crib, but yeah, because I'm down to 15%. And so we're waiting to see what type of stuff these officers come out with. You know, 9 times out of 10, if it's a shooting, it's going to be a semi-automatic weapon, which would mean that there was shell casings. So a diligent officer would gather these shell casings from the scene of the shooting, and they would match those with the caliber of weapon they were looking for. And that would be the definition of specific warrant. We are looking for a 9mm pistol. We're looking for a .45 caliber pistol. Those are, what are those? Exigent circumstances, circumstantial evidence, yeah. Where the circumstances of this crime fit specifically. But specific warrant must issue. I'd like to see if we can get some examples of some of their warrants, because I'll tell you that in a lot of my complaints that I've had experience with, they were not very specific. They were super general, and they didn't say that I could have or may have, or that, you know, they feel like I did. No, they said that I did, in fact, do everything that they said I did. Which is why there's also case law that says that a member of the judiciary should not stand on the complaint of the officers alone, but should make a diligent examination of all the evidence. On every complaint that I've ever seen through all my time of doing jail, since the officers said they did it, the judiciary went with they did it. There was no diligent examination of the evidence. And then the first thing they do is give you a public defender who tells you that you should waive your preliminary hearing, which is your first opportunity to litigate probable cause. Your first opportunity to bring up issues that you may have with a current situation. Which is probably the worst legal advice that a public defender could give anybody. How are you guys doing?
Hello, how are you? Good, how are you?
Oh, you know, hanging in there.
Say Aggie was here?
So you guys have an officer on this side with a resident, and then in the dwelling over there on the left side also. So it seems though they didn't lock the door during the latter part of the occupancy of the dwelling. Since the door isn't locked, I wouldn't say that that constitutes them having any more control over the domicile. However, for the first 45 minutes of the incident, they had full control over the domicile. Full and private control over the domicile. Before they had a warrant. Before they had a specific warrant. Once again, I'd like to remind the public that who knows what they said over the radio and who knows what they said over the cell phones. They very well could have told the supervising officer what to apply for the warrant for. You never know. And that would be an entity of the government having a little bit too much control. Maybe not enough oversight, Maybe there has to be a third party that looks over it and checks, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing right. And they audit the members of the public regularly to make sure you're paying your taxes, but is anybody making sure that the government officials are doing their job the way they're supposed to? Because realistically, who's going to call the police on the police? Although they're public indentured servants and they work for the public, they're employed by us, they're paid by us. There's nobody that makes sure that they're operating the way they're supposed to. Members of the general public don't even know how the police are supposed to operate. They would look to the police to tell them how they're supposed to operate. And when it comes to power, 9 times out of 10, people are going to take advantage of that. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. America, people, as a society, are lazy nowadays. So, look at the expansion of Grubhub and Lyft and, Uber Eats and every other delivery service in the world. Everything's done online. You can't get a customer service agent in person. It's always a bot. It stems all the way back to the beginning of America. Those dudes had to plant the fields and build the house and hunt the food and skin the animals and, do everything else. Nowadays, you can't get some dudes to get up off the couch. I propose this question to the public. Would it be too much to require law enforcement to have a full-fledged degree in law before they enforce the laws? As far as the public's going in public safety, keeping in mind the need for public safety, would it be too much to ask for the DA, the judge, the police officers, all to have the same knowledge of the laws and how they apply to the people while they are enforcing these laws? I don't feel like that would be too much to ask. And I don't feel like anybody who wants the responsibility of enforcing laws should not go to those lengths. Like, if you really want something, if you really want that responsibility, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it. If you really believe in that cause, a degree in law isn't a lot to ask for. Because you believe in that cause. You'll do anything to fulfill it, right? However, I don't think very many officers have a degree in law. Maybe a handful. There's got to be at least one. But the 2 plainclothes officers that went in and went out, they were definitely detectives. And from my understanding, the detectives are the ones that are charged with the forensic investigations. Where did they go to conduct their forensic investigation? Let's see if we can go see. I'm not going to go too far because we want to maintain a visual on the front, but nice cigar. I don't see him over there. The other officer stated for us already that they saw the gentleman at the front door and then entered the building. So, from my logic, it's hard to fathom what type of forensic investigation would need to be conducted outside of the building. But that's just me. I'm not nobody special. Let's get out of the way of the street here so this officer can move around like he needs to. Now, although they have the suspect in custody, they're still having more officers arrive to the scene. So they could find a gun. Maybe. Who knows? Because they still haven't left the house. I feel like Denver Metro Audits is gonna love this one. And I think it's someone like Jane Fonda. Who is that lady that went and lived with the gorillas? That's what you got to do, Denver Metro Audits. If you really want to catch the good stuff, you got to go live with the gorillas. So we have the two detectives going back upstairs. Let's give the neighbors some anonymity. Let's sidestep over here, see if we can give you a shot of what's going on over here. So we have the officer say that, we heard him say, right, that the only line of sight they had on him was at the door and entering the building. Well, for them to have a line of sight on the door and entering the building, he would have to be somewhere over here. Because you can't see anybody enter the building on that side. But they have definitely focused their attention on the outside of the building as opposed to the inside where they're occupying somebody's domicile. I find it strange that They would section off the back of the building. If they had to see somebody, it'd have to be this front side of the building. This is the diligence that we're talking about. Mulberry versus Madison. This is why I feel like America's justice system is a rubber stamp assembly line. As long as it looks good on paper. Because nobody's going to look at the fact that, the officer said he had a line of sight for the front of the building and they sectioned off a search perimeter in the back of the building. It's probably not going to be brung up by the suspect's public defender. Widely overlooked in most criminal cases, little things like that. And although I respect what Denver Metro Audit is doing, I don't respect the fact that they don't ask none of the tough questions. Can't promote a positive change if you don't ask any of the tough questions. How are we going to get real rehabilitation in prison if we don't ask any of the tough questions? On the flip side of that coin, how are we going to know that our law enforcement are doing a fantastic job if we don't ask any of the tough questions? There's always good and bad on both sides of the fence. Some of these officers deserve to be commended and some of them don't. But we'll never know which is which if we don't ask any of the tough questions. Well, this is all you're going to get for today, Denver Metro Audits. My battery's running out. You got some competition in town. Let's see what the people think of this.